Hello, fellow nerds, geeks, and supporters of indie pop culture creators. Aaron Nabus here, and welcome to the Hall H Show. It's been a while since we had our guest for this episode, Terry Mayo, on the podcast. You can check out the video of my first interview with him from October of 2017 at Panels Comic Book and Coffee Bar in Oceanside, California, on the Hall H Show YouTube channel, or the audio version as part of episode 29, which also features a bunch of other San Diego indie comic creators that I interviewed that day. Terry has an interesting story from growing up in Texas and then making his way to California, writing screenplays and then comic books. He's also working as a nurse and raising 14 kids. I miss seeing him at conventions and local San Diego comic-related events. I'm glad he found time out of his busy schedule to jump on the podcast today to get me caught up on what he's been up to, like his new comic book, Buddy, which is on Kickstarter until Saturday, June 5th, 2021. And although it's been successfully, it's successfully reached its goal, please still consider supporting it. Terry is also known for his other comic books, Wicked Righteous and Disposable Legends, and also a few other anthologies. Welcome back to the show, Terry. And also joining us is the artist for Buddy, Dave Swartz.
Well, hey, how's it going, Aaron?
Pretty good. And hello, Dave.
Hello, it's great to be here.
And I was joking about the 14 kids, but let's wish him and his wife congratulations on the 8th one on the way, coincidentally. I think the last time we had him on, he only had 6 kids. So,
yeah, just 6.
And right before the podcast, he messaged me saying that he had to change a diaper first. So that's life, right?
That is life. That is life right there.
And explain really quick why, even though the Kickstarter is successfully funded, that why is it important for people to still contribute?
You know what? I really want to get as many eyes on Buddy as possible because I love this story. I believe in this story, and I believe in Buddy, and I feel like it's a good story that should be told, and hopefully people enjoy. So the more people that back it, the more people that can see it, and the more attention they can get, and then Buddy can live a long life. So kind of like that National Lampoon magazine where there's the gun pointed to the dog's head. I'm not doing that, but at the same time, I'm like, let's give Buddy a long life here.
Sounds good. And like all our podcasts and all our heroes, they all have origin stories. We heard Terry's back in 2017. He grew up in Texas and was a big fan of He-Man. Let's get to know Dave a little bit better. Why don't you let us know where you grew up and what you were into when you were a kid? Say, what did you watch and read when you were a teenager?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a teenager, I was super, super heavy into comics. Probably a lot more than I am now, I would say, even though I'm creating them every day now. As a kid, I just absorbed everything. So I had a huge collection of my own that I started when I was pretty young. My uncle used to take me to comic book stores in our area and, let me pick out whatever I wanted. He'd buy it for me as a little treat, and then I would take it home and find my favorite, drawing that was in that book that week and try to draw it as best that I could. So I was, I think, very much caught by the comic book art bug when I was even, 6, 7 years old. But I think at that time I was as interested in, Power Rangers was huge for me when I was a kid. I remember that being really big. I also was really into I talk a lot about this for my other project I'm working on, Confederate Monster, but I was also very much interested in the Universal monsters, the original movies, from the 20s and the 30s. That same uncle got me into comics, got me into those types of movies and that like early horror genre. So that was sort of how I got into a lot of this stuff. And I've always really been captivated ever since. So, yeah.
Oh, do you remember the first comic book that you read? I think for Terry, it was a what if Wolverine killed the Hulk, if I remember.
Yeah.
You
So
know, I think the very first comic I ever read was a reprint of the original X Men, the very first X Men issue, with I think that had Magneto in it, didn't it? That was when Jean Grey first appeared at the school. So I remember my uncle had like a reprint of the first, I think, like 15 or 20 issues of the X Men run, the original from the 60s. So I was kind of I wasn't gifted it, but he let me borrow it for a while. And I remember I think I read the whole thing in one night. I just, comic after comic after comic. I was so enthralled by it. So yeah, I think it was X Men.
nice.
You're just an
And what?
OG. Look at you.
I know.
Yeah, I was surrounded by lots of original stuff. So I didn't get that. I talked to a lot of my comic book friends about how they got into stuff as well, and they all have a very kind of similar, like, oh, I got into it through the '90s through Image, things like that. And I'm like, I didn't really get into it like that. I'm a old school guy, even though I'm kind of young. So weird.
And where did you grow up?
I'm from Michigan, so I'm still in Michigan. I bounced around a little bit, but I've always sort of stayed close to home. I enjoyed going around the country doing Comic Cons when I first started doing this whole thing for real about 7-8 years ago. But yeah, I've always sort of, as much as I enjoy my travels around the country, I've always kind of really enjoyed Michigan for all that it has. So.
So, if you could pick another place to live besides Michigan, where would you want to live?
I think I would have to go with Colorado. I've been to a lot of different places, but Colorado just seems to be one of those places that whenever I do go back to, it does feel like a second home to me.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's the nature or the elevation or the lax in drug laws. I don't know. Could be a lot.
Yeah. Did you grow up a Detroit Pistons fan?
Yeah, actually, I did.
Yeah.
I went to games. I would say at least once a year when I was a little kid. I remember going to some of their more famous games when it was around like their playoff run in I think like 2004.
Oh, with Chauncey
I was
Billups and
yeah, I was in
yeah.
high school. I just 2004 is when I graduated high school, so I was super into it during that time and a couple years afterwards. I remember one time I actually worked for a guy who owned a limo, and he let me rent that for a game. So me and like six of my buddies went to a Pistons game at a limo one time, which was pretty dope.
Now I'm
So
so jealous. Yeah, I grew up a Pistons fan. Like during the Joe Dumars and Isaiah Thomas and Robin run.
yeah,
And I also enjoyed when Chauncey Billups and Rip Hamilton, everybody was there.
yeah,
Those were some awesome games. But
yeah,
being from California, everybody was a Laker fan, over
sure.
here. So I was definitely an anomaly. um, yeah, you probably get along with my friend Rylan Grant. He grew up in Michigan as well.
Oh, right on. Cool.
Um, yeah, why don't we sort of segue to your creative journey? And this is a question for both of you. How old were you when you first became aware of your artistic nature? I guess
Um,
we'll go with Terry first.
yeah, go ahead.
I've always been like, well, as far as being an art, I tried drawing, and I used to set up my, those little green army men that you get. I would set those
Right.
up and draw them, and I would draw everything, but it all looked atrocious. I just never had it. I don't know what it is, but I didn't have that talent. But I tried. I tried to cultivate it, but now I'm just stick figures, and that's about all I can do. But the writing really kicked in around, I guess, junior high is when I started like really writing, but it was more like prose and stuff like that. Comics was when I was in high school. I had cancer when I was about 15ish, 15, 16, and my stepmother gave me like a journal and like a ton of comic books, because I was all into comic books during that time of the '90s where it was like the death of Superman and whatnot. Um, and so I just started like drawing panels in this journal, and I've still got the journal somewhere around here. Just drawing panels, drawing scripts, or writing scripts and whatnot. So from like high school on, I was into comic books. I was like, oh, I'll do this one day, and then came across Executioner's Song, the X-Men crossover event from like the '93, whatever. It was the one that was all bagged and it came with cards and stuff, which is probably describes every '90s book,
Bunch of
but
variants.
yeah, the 300 number ones variants. But yeah, it was right around that time that I was like, this is something I really want to put on my bucket list and do one day. And then had about 13 kids, and life got put on pause, or comic book life got put on pause. And then when it became easier, I was like, yeah, we're doing this. We're gonna try to do this. But from an early age, it was kind of like Dave. I was into comic books and the movie and the nerd culture, I guess. So I was always writing something.
Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. I like I said before, I started drawing my favorite pages from comics when I was 7, 8 years old. So I caught that bug really early. I It's funny because I think a lot of kids at that age would be more interested in creating their own stories and drawing whatever they wanted to draw. But for whatever reason, I was just so enthralled with trying to make something look like what I had seen in a comic. So I was less interested in trying to create my own worlds at that time, and more interested in just trying to emulate what I saw other professionals doing. So maybe that's part of why I almost feel like I waited too long to get started in this game. I've only been in doing comics for like 7, 8 years, but I certainly could have started, you know, 10, 15 years ago if I wanted to. So yeah, I think that for me, it's been a long journey, but I'm just super happy that eventually, even though I've done a lot of different jobs within the creative field, that I've eventually won myself back to the comic book world. So
I know Terry's a registered nurse and works as a nurse.
Mhm.
Are you working full time with comics, or do you have a day job as well?
yeah, I'm more of a full time freelance artist, not so much just specifically comics. I'm actually recently, within the last couple of months, have been developing a new approach to I'm making art, just doing abstract art. So I've just been doing abstract paintings and things for the last month or so, and I want to just see what I can do with that. But my other day job stuff, I do just commissions for other people. I just the other day I did a Spider-Man one-page story commission as a wedding gift for someone. A very fun challenge. I'm doing a painting of a brain for a brain linguist friend of mine. So it's just things that just pop up from time to time, that help me pay the bills, whenever I'm not selling comics or other paintings of mine. So,
Are you gonna get into the NFT business?
it's funny. That is not the first time I've been asked that question. I personally, myself, I don't necessarily want to get into that game. As we discussed, I'm kind of an old school guy, even though I'm young. So I don't know, for whatever reason, I am not as interested in it as most people are, I think, at the moment. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm open to almost anything. So maybe in a little while I'll get on that train.
I know this isn't this kind of show, but I have no clue what an NFT is. I mean, people talk about it, and I smile, but I really feel old because I'm like, I don't know what
I'm not even
is it.
sure if
Money?
anyone
Is that what NFT is? I
It's
don't.
yeah, I think that it's an acronym for non fungible token. I'm just
yeah.
reading off a little web thing I found here, and it's basically a digital asset, and
Yeah.
it uses you heard of Bitcoin, but
Mhm.
there's blockchain, which is the technology behind Bitcoin. It uses it to sort of keep track of transactions, so it should be
It's
more
sort of like a weird, or at least the way that I look at it, it's like a weird digital form of original art.
right. Hmm.
So like it's not a traditionally you'd have like an original painting or original drawing or
Mhm.
sketch or whatever, and it has physicality to it. Whereas like these, they don't have physicality to them, but because of the way the blockchain system works, they can like essentially create a unique quality about them that makes them only unique to the person that owns them.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it's like you can technically have ownership of it, even though it's not technically a physical thing. It's a weird, yeah, it's super freaking
Hmm.
weird. That's why I'm like a little jumping on that train because I'm quite not quite sure if I understand the value system in it. Um, but yeah, it's I don't know. That's the
Plus,
best way I've been able to understand it.
What a
plus,
world.
I guess there is some controversy, about the trade-off between like the amount of energy required to create it
Oh yeah.
versus the actual, I guess, value of it. So
Mm.
Well, because of all the servers that you need to keep cool to
yeah.
be able to keep it alive. You're right.
So
That's
yeah, I guess that's something that we'll have to just keep a track of going forward, see how it goes.
right. Right.
Yeah, things happen and change, on the drop of a hat, so you just never know.
Hmm.
Um, Terry, yeah, this is sort of something that I kind of want to touch. It's about rejection. Last time we talked, you mentioned that you keep a collection of rejection letters.
Hmm.
Why is that important to you, and why is it important to, I guess, find a good way to handle rejection as a creator?
Yeah, you know what? I think it's a motivating thing for me, right? So, I don't know, maybe it's a personality flaw as well. But I had a teacher once that I wasn't interested in his class at all, and I was kind of not the best student in his class because I would crack jokes a lot. But it came up in class that I was going to work in the medical field one day, and he was like, "You can't even pass this class. How are you going to be in the medical field?" So I was like, all right, well. So some people have teachers that really inspired them, like a Mr. Holland's Opus type movie thing, and this guy was he was my inspiration to like kind of show him, even though I've never gone back and be like, see, Mr. Richards, I know what I'm talking about. So same thing kind of with the letters. It is a motivation thing for me to be like, it's good feedback. If you get a good rejection letter and it really outlines, what they see is maybe the what's holding you back from reaching that next level, then those are golden, and you keep them and you read them, and it becomes motivation to do better. And then there's the rejections letters that are just like no and period. And those are the ones that I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Okay, well then that motivates me in a different way because I believe in myself and I'm going to keep pushing this forward. I believe in this project, and it is kind of one of those, well, see, I told you type things for me. So maybe that's not a popular answer, but it's my answer.
How about you, Dave? What's your stance on handling rejection?
Well, I think it's pretty similar to Terry's. It's a moment for self reflection and reconstruction. I know specifically Terry and I have talked about one publisher that we've both tried to go after before and haven't been able to find a project that he's liked. And it's weird too because the last time I pitched to that particular publisher, I specifically wrote a story for the feedback that I got. Like when I wrote a previous book for them and I sent it out and they said, we really enjoy it, but it's just not like it doesn't fit our library. And then I, pushed a little further and I said, well, what does, like, what are you really looking for? And he was kind enough to take the time to say, this is kind of what we're looking for. Here's some buzzwords, here's some reference to give you an idea. So I used that as inspiration to create a story that I thought was perfect. Sent it out, I still got the same exact rejection, So sometimes even your best laid plans are not going to work out exactly how you envision. But when you get to the end, when you get to, I would say, the end of your journey here on this earth, I would hope that you can look back and see all of those rejections as just stepping stones, just like those other opportunities towards your ultimate goal. So, for me, I think it's just all part of the process, and it can be a moment to, reflect on what you haven't been able to successfully accomplish, and how you can successfully accomplish it maybe the next time.
Nice. Terry, you went to school for nursing. Did you go to school for writing?
I did actually, yeah. So I have degrees in nursing, psychology, and education. So I just kept going to school because originally I was going to college originally to be a coach, a football coach, um, and quickly learned that that wasn't going to keep my interest, and it really wasn't my path. Uh, so while I was doing prerequisites to get into the nursing program and the medical program, I started doing creative writing classes, theater classes, that kind of stuff. Took some art classes because I just didn't want to give up on on that dream. But yeah, so I ended up graduating from Texas Tech and then Odessa College and then New Mexico Junior College, all with different degrees. Um, yeah, it's been fun. It really is one of those things that just is. It's been swirling around me. I feel like my entire life because I would always play with my toys and keep journals, of like, okay, well, they got this far in their journey under my bed. And so when I continue the story tomorrow, and it's just weird. And at the time, my sisters thought I was insane, and they probably still do. But that was me. That was my build up.
For sure.
Nice. And this might be a personal question, but was having cancer at a young age like an important factor in you choosing nursing as a as a job?
Yeah, you know what it was, because the first time I had cancer, I mentioned it on the show already, but when I was a teenager, um, I was in MD Anderson in Houston for almost a year, like doing chemo and radiation and surgery, and it was like back to back to back to back. One of those things where they keep you for about 45 days, and then if you are feeling good, you get to go home. And at the time, I was at the Ronald McDonald House there in Houston. But I just never got to that point where I could like go home. So I stayed in the hospital for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the nurses, like it's like a little family. They see you every day, and you see them 5 days out of the week, and they just become family. So at some point in that journey, I was like, this is a worthwhile thing, and I really, I think my heart is just drawn to something like that, and it must be
Nice.
because I've been a nurse for 24 years now. So
Wow, time flies.
it does. It really does.
um, Dave, did you go to school formally to become an artist, an illustrator?
Yeah, actually, I after my high school dreams of being in a rock band did not turn out, I
Yet.
decided I needed to find a real job, and then I decided I was going to go to art school and find a real job that way, which my dad was great and very happy about. But no, I knew that secondarily I was always very interested in art and design, and so I wanted to pursue that in some way, shape, or form. When I first started, I had the idea of doing comics because I'd always been so interested in that. So I kind of began with the thought that that's what I was gonna shoot for. And then it seemed as though every year that I expanded my understanding of the medium that I was working with, because I switched from drawing, because at first I was like, oh, I'm never doing painting, like I'm just gonna draw. And then I jumped into painting and all the different types of paint and all the different types of techniques and things, and so every year it just seemed like I was interested in something else, so I changed my interest into this formal kind of I would say kind of like skateboard art, but it was like fine skateboard art, like doing in galleries and things. And then I really got into children's book illustration for a while. I was very enthralled with these watercolor paintings that just really interest me and how they created those wonderful things. So I really did give myself a chance to explore other mediums and other job opportunities and other careers, I should say. And then after I graduated, I couldn't find any work anywhere. I literally graduated in 2008 when the economy crashed, so I just didn't have any opportunities at all. And eventually I found my way to a graphic design job, did that for a while, and worked my way up to creative director. And I really loved it. I think it taught me a lot about being a leader and about being a head of a team and how to deal with clients, and how to market, and all the things that I would eventually utilize now, being a freelance writer, artist, overall comic book creator. Because I helped Terry with Buddy doing the art, but I have my own book where I books, I should say, where I do write and draw and letter the whole thing. I have these things that pop up every once in a while through my comic book community here now, that just I wasn't expecting. Like Terry and I started doing Buddy 2 years ago, and I had full interest in doing all of these books with him. And then unfortunately, he had the cancer come back for him, and he wasn't able to complete it. So we only had one issue done. And now, all these years later, Terry just hits me up out of the blue, and wants me to jump back on the train. And I said yes, mainly because of Terry. I told myself a long time ago that I wasn't going to take jobs for people just because of the money, and I wasn't going to take jobs that I thought weren't going to benefit my not only my career but my own psyche. I want to work on projects that are interesting and fun and challenging. I've done a lot of sci-fi, I've done a lot of horror, but I haven't really done a lot of like humor. And that's the thing I found that was so interesting about Buddy, was it has a lot of the elements that I enjoy, the horror stuff, but it has this like comedic kind of swing to it that Terry really brings to it, and I thought it was a fun thing to explore. So with all that in mind, that's the reason why I decided to continue with Terry, and to do Buddy ultimately again. So yeah, I think what I've learned along the way is you just have to do what's best for yourself, and it sounds like Terry's done that as well. So
Gonna
I
make
guess
me
I could.
cry.
I'm dead serious though, man. I've worked with so many different writers and other artists and creators out there, and I don't think I've ever really worked with someone who's just been so open to my input. Oftentimes it's just met with, well, it's my book, and I just want you to draw that ridiculous thing happening there. Like, ugh, no, why? So anyway.
Yeah, you said I guess the idea of Buddy started 2 years ago.
Mhm.
How did you both meet?
Dave and I, we actually, Dave had a book called Feast or Famine, which I'll let him talk about. But so we were under the same umbrella over at Alterna for a little bit. And Dave and I worked on some short stories for the Wicked Righteous that popped up in the trade and then in one of the anthologies over there. So that's how we initially started our working relationship. But I mean, it's always been smooth, and it's always been, one of those yin yang things. It just almost feels like we've been working together forever, even though we haven't. But it's just a
Mhm.
good working relationship, and it's really cool on both ends, I feel like.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, like I've said with Terry, he is just very open to my input, which a lot of other creators aren't as much. They kind of just have a very specific vision, and they just want you to regurgitate that vision as best that you can. So I enjoy the fact that Terry's open to hearing my input, and he is willing to adapt his vision and to adapt the story to fit a new idea. Like I know with one of those shorts that we worked on for the Wicked Righteous, uh, he gave me the script and I put the whole thing together, and he took a one look at it and decided, I want to rewrite not only the script but the whole like point of view of how the story is being told. And that's not a major thing that happens. I mean, that's not a thing that happens ever, really. So I just, and the fact was, when you redid it, Terry, it was a million times better. It just elevated the emotions in the story and the characters and what was happening to a level that it hadn't been originally. So it's just nice to have another creator who's open to exploring new ideas and elevating your idea to a place where you didn't necessarily think it could go. You know, I will say with my previous work, Feast or Famine, it was another collaborative effort, and it was a similar type thing where I was writing it and I had another artist drawing it, and whenever he had a better idea or whenever he saw that there was an issue with how I had laid it out, right? He would come back and say, "Well, how about we try this because I think this might work better." And 9 times out of 10 he was always right. So I think that being a comic book creator, whether or not you're the writer or the artist, you have to be open to that collaborative effort, the co-creation of the book, right? Because if you're just a control freak the whole time, yeah, it might turn out the way you envision, but it may not turn out the best way that it possibly could have been envisioned.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's also good to meet a fellow graphic designer. And I know in the graphic design world, collaboration is definitely a key component of a long-term relationship within the agency.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about I guess, how the idea of Buddy was birthed into the world. How did that happen?
So, well, as you know, I grew up in Texas and I live in San Diego now. So, um, I had a dog named Buddy a while back. And one trip before we started going to Texas, he was at the bottom of the stairs and just kind of like barking at nothing. And Buddy was just, uh, I would have given him up so many times if I didn't love the dog, but he was so annoying and he was such an annoying dog, and I swear there was something wrong with that dog, but you just couldn't help but love him, you know. And but he was at the bottom of the stairs, barking at nothing, and your creative mind goes places. Like, oh my gosh, dogs can see ghosts. Dogs can see stuff that we can't see. That kind of stuff. So as I'm driving to Texas in the middle of the night, I start recalling that memory, and the story, like the kernel of the story started building from there. And I wanted to bring something into the world that was a little bit different because a lot of my stuff is that I've written before is a hard R as far as like content and the language and whatever else, and Buddy really isn't that. I mean, even though the tagline is Milo and Otis meets The Exorcist, it's still, I feel like, something that anybody of any age could pick up and really take something from, and that's what I wanted to put into the world right now was something like that.
Now, when you first heard about this idea, Dave, like, what kind of thoughts went into your head on the sort of the creative direction that you wanted to push?
I think for me, like I said before, I was looking for a new challenge and I was looking for a new way of telling stories visually. And as Terry was saying, some of his previous work had that hard R. I feel like mine in ways had a similar quality as in the sense that a lot of my stories tend to be very written for adult level thinking, right? They're not necessarily written for all ages. So I was really interested in the opportunity to work on an all ages kind of book, with a bit of that, adult content within there. I think within the first like 3 or so pages, there's like a boobies joke in the first issue. So I was like, oh, yeah, that's kind of the tone I'm looking for right now. Something fun, lighthearted, and different. I there's a couple of different opportunities to envision things that I haven't quite seen before. As much in horror, especially like possession type movies or television shows. The scenes where we get to possess inanimate objects, like all of his toys. Like there's a scene where the young boy has a bunch of these toys, and people who are fans of Feast or Famine will notice one of the toys is actually one of the characters from Feast or Famine. But we make all these toys just possessed for a scene. Where they all have this sort of like demonic kind of look to them. And I think there's like I think there's a little figure of like a knight, like a medieval knight, and his sword is a flame when he's possessed. So it's little fun things like that that you get to explore and play with, and see what works and what doesn't. And yeah, so it's been really fun.
Nice. And how long did it take for you to sort of, I guess, from initial concept to something that you wanted to pursue, Terry, into like a solid idea?
Uh, I mean, once I sat down, I was like, yeah, okay, I think I can do this. Um, Maybe about 2 months to really flesh out something that I felt like an artist wouldn't throw back at me and and say this is crap, and then something that I felt like not only would I like, and maybe my one or two of my kids might like, but something that other people could latch onto.
Hmm.
Um, was a couple months, and then fleshing out that and fleshing out kind of the direction of where I wanted this first arc to go, or this story to go. Um, but was a couple months, and then I immediately, I think Dave, you were the first and only person I reached out to for this story. Uh, yeah, and again, I think the I don't know if we ever talked about this, but the the portfolio that you sent me for the Wicked Righteous shorts, there was a piece in there that looked really like almost identical to what we're doing now, and I latched onto that, and I was like, this is kind of the look I wanted to go for. And it was, I know the first pass that we did on art was a little bit darker, uh,
Yeah.
but the colors I really wanted to pop and stuff, and you I just thought of you when I was writing the story, honestly, for the art part of that.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I remember doing the first pitch. It was like an 8-page pitch, and I remember doing like a very minimalistic kind of color palette, but it was also very desaturated. I tried to, we weren't entirely sure the tone exactly yet. I think we kind of knew what it was, but at the same time, I was still trying to figure out visually, what it was, the identity of it. And I think after we did those initial pages, and upon reflection, because it was a while later
Mm,
until we actually got to doing the first issue. That the realization that we wanted to kind of brighten things up, and kind of bring it out of that dark and dreary kind of place. I think it elevated it to another you know part of the storytelling that wasn't there before. The story itself is quite fun and lighthearted, and when you look at the original art, it doesn't really reflect that. So now that we've had an opportunity to kind of go back, reflect, and change things, I think the new art is much more reflective of the overall story that's trying to be told.
yeah.
Speaking of pitches, if you were, excuse me, if you were at a comic convention today, what would be your pitch to people that came to your table?
Well, hey, do you like pugs? Do you like demonic possession? uh, well, then wait till you meet Buddy. It's basically Milo and Otis meets the Exorcist. It's about a adorable little pug who protects his family from the forces of evil that are trying to invade his home. Boom,
Now,
elevator pitch.
now, was Buddy originally a pug?
Yeah, yeah, but my buddy, the real life Buddy,
Yeah.
was a pug,
Uh,
tongue out, everything. So Buddy was always meant to be a pug. Yeah,
so I think I saw a picture that you posted on your Facebook timeline. Is that him?
the one with the penguin hat, that is Buddy. Yeah,
Uh,
and I have a
um,
video on the Kickstarter, and his picture comes up in the video. So
got it. All
that
right.
that's Buddy. That's my little buddy.
You also have a letterer on the creative team. You want to tell us about him and how you found him?
Yeah, so Zen is doing letters and he's doing edits, and which is amazing because there's so much that he's adding to the depth of it. And anybody who's ever seen Zen's work, it's amazing the stuff he does. He's done stuff for Action Lab and and a couple other places. But I met him actually. I met him at SoCal Comics back in 2016 ish, maybe.
Oh wow.
He was there for one of those events that Jamie threw,
Right.
and I think for an Action Lab book. and we just kind of hit it off. And we were always like, whenever something comes up, you got to get me on the book. And I was like, yeah, man, I'd love to have you on. So when Buddy came up, again, Zen was the first person that I went to, and I was like, I don't know if you'd be down. I don't know if you'd be down for a book like this, but this is what it is. And he said, yeah, I would love to letter. I would love to edit. Just let me know when. Just let me know when it's my turn to get in the game.
Nice.
So it was nice. The from the initial team that started, I'm happy as the team that's working on it now, because I really don't see anybody else on this book but the three of us that are doing it. So it's been really cool.
Now, are there any Kickstarter reward tiers that you want to sort of highlight?
Sure, yeah. So, well, we got a few. Honestly, we got a few that are cool. I mean, the enamel pin of Buddy, and it's a full figure uh, enamel pin. It's how many inches is that, Dave? It's 1.5, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a 1.5 for the pin. We upped the sticker size because I
To
felt
two.
like the sticker size needed to be a little bigger.
Yeah.
But
So the enamel pin is doing really well. I got some people getting multiple of those. The We got a couple variants. One by Stan Yak, one by Emily Pearson, who does stuff for like Vault and whatnot. And then Kelly Williams, who's doing a book over at TKO right now. He did a variant cover, and he actually donated his original art piece for the cover, so that one's up in the add-ons. So if you wanted the original art from one of the variant covers, it's there. Dave is donating some original art from the Buddy #1, and he's also doing commissions, which you're going to be busy because a couple people are getting those. Yeah, maybe I should just do them and be like, "This is Dave's best work." I don't know what to tell you. Stick figure.
you could just do it on the back. I'll just ship them all to you, and then you can just do your own little doodle on the back. Be like a
We didn't say be a good sketch, just a sketch. Sorry, guys. You got to read the fine print. But and one thing that I like and I'm excited about, just because I was a big nerd growing up with Marvel, and I really did make mine Marvel more than anything when I was growing up. But were those trading cards that came out like in 91, 90, 91, whatever. So I sent Dave over like the picture of the Deathlock rookie card from that set, the trading card set, and he came back with a Buddy rookie card. So I'm excited to have that in my hands. I don't know if anybody else is, but it's there if you want it. Um, and what else we have? Dave, what else do we have on there?
Did you mention that you can be drawn into issues 2 or 3?
I did not. I did not. Yeah. So yeah, and something really cool, and a couple people have taken advantage of that as well. Is yeah, you can send us over the picture of you or someone that or pet, whoever you want to be in the book, and then we'll do our best to highlight you as best we can in the upcoming issues of Buddy.
I'll
Nice.
figure it out.
Figure it out. Yeah.
Those sound awesome.
We'll try not to kill you or anything.
We'll try.
Yeah.
No guarantees.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the U.S. is starting to sort of turn the corner when it comes to the pandemic. On a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest level of confidence, how confident are you about attending in-person conventions later this year?
Ooh, 2021. I've kind of said no. I'm not going to do any conventions, and I think my approach is less for my, because I've been vaccinated. I've been fully vaccinated for a while now, and all my kids are vaccinated. Took 2 more yesterday to get their last dose. So everybody in my family who can be vaccinated is vaccinated. So I don't feel like it's more us, and I understand the science behind it and everything. Uh, but I really I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm, I guess, what's the word? I guess promoting like a super spreader type of event, because I know there's a lot of people out there who don't want to get vaccinated, and that's their right. Um, and at the same time, I don't feel like I want to be setting up a booth somewhere where someone could get sick, where someone could get their family sick, and I just was something so deadly and bad. So I think I'm going to skip out 2021 and see how 2022 looks.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, I think I'm in kind of the same boat with Terry. I honestly, before the pandemic, I wasn't a huge Comic Con goer. I would only usually go to Comic Cons in my area if I wasn't really pushing a book hard. Um, So I'd really only stick to like the Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio kind of area. But even still, I'm not sure I'll be attending any this year for those similar reasons. As well as, I'll be honest, I have, with 2020, I've been kind of forced, like a lot of us have, to pivot onto digital platforms to try to promote and to make money really at this business. And I have seen such a big turnaround in people, flocking to more of these online kind of sources for their Comic Con fixes. A lot more YouTube shows are doing art auctions, and digital kind of cons. I'm seeing more success, honestly, with the auctions than I am with the digital cons. I participated in a couple of the digital cons. They're nice, I would say, and it's a nice gesture. And I think for a lot of more well known people, it might work better for them. But it seems like a similar kind of problem that you have with cons, where it's just like there's a lot of people that you're competing with, right? But when it comes to auctions, it's like you have your own specific kind of time. This is the piece. How much do you want to pay for it? And I've seen a tremendous amount of success with that as an artist. I know it's different being a writer, but as far as Comic Con's going forward, I don't know. I might just pick a couple of really good shows that I'm happy going to, and that aren't, I know, going to make me potentially lose money. Because sometimes Comic Cons can be expensive. I mean, sometimes these tables, they run 4 or 5, maybe even more. And you kind of have to. I mean, well, you shouldn't kind of have to. You have to make that up in order to be able to even make any profit at all. So I'll be honest. I feel like I'm kind of pivoting more towards some of these more digital types of avenues for promotion. But I will say there is a certain magic about a Comic Con that I do miss, and I eventually will be returning to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all miss that special thing.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree with the virtual cons. I mean, it's been cool to sort of watch and listen to the panels, but the virtual cons, they don't really translate well to the virtual, I guess, sort of area where the tables are, or like the virtual tables, or the
Mhm.
the artists don't seem to benefit from from the attention that the panels get. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I completely agree. Yeah, the idea is that these panels and these celebrities and these extra things that you find at a Comic Con is supposed to kind of attract more people, to get more eyes for everyone that's participating, including the artists. But yeah, I totally agree with you there that it's difficult to kind of have that cross pollination when everybody's kind of like in their own little digital silo, if you will.
Yeah. So I can kind of see where the sort of, like you said, the digital or virtual auctions do better for you than
Hmm.
the actual virtual cons do.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. At least that's the when I look at the data that I have from what I've been able to do just myself, that's what I've seen. So,
Do you guys remember the first convention that you attended as a
Oh
as a
boy.
young man or a young kid?
I do. I do. Because I didn't they didn't growing up in Texas, my population of my hometown was maybe 5,000, maybe 6,000, depending if you counted like horses and cows. But so it was a small town. So it wasn't the comic books I got were probably about 3 4 months behind what everyone else was getting. It was just a whole different time. Uh, so I didn't even know that conventions really existed till I moved out to California. I mean, not on that level. You would read about them in like magazines, Wizard, whatever, but it just seemed like another world to me. So moving out to California, it was actually San Diego Comic Con was my first convention, and we were walking around the gas lamp in San Diego and saw these flyers up for this thing called San Diego Comic Con. And I looked at my wife and I was like, "Hey, we should stop by and see if we can get in." And this was like maybe 1999.
Hmm.
And we walked up and I asked what it was, and they said, "Well, here, go this way." And we walked in and we bought tickets for everybody that day. And then we were there. And And next thing I know, I'm walking down an aisle, and the band Guar is standing there on full makeup and outfit. And then in the next aisle, you got the wrestler like Rob Van Dam is walking up and down the aisles, stopping at booths, and I take a picture with him. And then the actor, Jeremy Bullock, who played Boba Fett, I stopped and got a
Mhm.
picture with it. So I mean, that was my first exposure. It's completely a different exposure than San Diego Comic Con is now, but different experience altogether. But that was my first one, so I think I was a little bit spoiled on my first time.
How about you, Dave?
I can't say specifically. I know I was super young, because my the uncle that I had mentioned before, who took me to comic book stores, he would take me to comic book conventions when he went as well. And I believe the first one I went to was in Maumee, Ohio, um, because I don't think we had any in the Michigan area at the time, so we had to drive down to Ohio in order to attend one. And I just remember it because it was sort of a living in Michigan. We're pretty close to Cedar Point in Ohio, so it was kind of a big destination every summer for a lot of people in my family. And it was a similar type thing for Maumee because they're pretty close in destination or location. So I remember it being a thing where we had to wake up like super early and get like breakfast sandwiches from McDonald's and like drive down there for like 4 or 5 hours or something like that. And then you go to this all day thing and then you drive back at night. And I just remember because I was probably like 7, 8 years old. I was absolutely loving it. I loved all the old toys, all the old, trading cards and stuff. Um, and then I think about probably 2 or 3 hours into it, I was like, I want to go home. So I just remember my first couple of Comic Cons. I absolutely loved it for the first couple of hours, and then I just could not stand walking any longer, and I just needed to sit. but but no, I remember I went to those types of Comic Cons for a long time as a kid, and then I stopped going for a while when I thought I was going to be a rock star and got super into that, and then I started going back when I was in college again, and I was so just taken aback by how many more like movie productions were there and like how much more swag was there, and it become a whole new animal in just like 10 years.
Yeah, I live in San Diego, so I definitely know.
Yeah, definitely. I've only been
um,
to San Diego Comic Con twice. I went in college back to back,
oh
and God,
wow!
was that just an experience.
Mm, yeah.
I guess you went to Pacific Beach, right?
Yeah.
um, how about your first convention as a creator? And also, can you sort of describe that feeling of sitting behind the table and interacting with your fans for the first time?
That was it was pretty wild. So when I was creative director for a while, what pivoted me over to comics was one of my graphic designers that worked for me at the time. I just was doing some artwork one day, and they kind of just said, "Hey, you're really good at that. Like, have you ever thought about having a table at the Comic Con here?" And it's funny because I'd gone to that comic convention a bunch of times, but the thought to actually have a table myself had never really crossed my mind. So then I decided, hey, like I've had this story for a while, so I'm just gonna flesh out like maybe an issue and see if maybe I can make an 8-page preview of that issue and get like a little, 8-page preview printed and print like, I don't know, I think I printed like 500 copies of the first run. Um, get a table and just see how it goes. And it was amazing. I didn't go all out as far as like the design of my table or the production value of my table the first year. But then the second year, when I had a finished issue and I had a lot more artwork to back it up, prints and things, I went full on with my table production. I had all kinds of decorations and lights and all kinds of stuff, and it just was a whole nother thing that showed me how I could interact with fans on a different level that I had previously not really thought of before. Um, and doing more of those conventions and getting to work on the table and to like you were saying interact with fans, um, it really helped me as a creator to propel myself from one comic book to the next, right? So I often would get into these moments where like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I writing comics? Why am I drawing comics? Like, what am I doing? But then going to a comic book convention, you remember, you see the fans, you see like how excited they are. You get to hear about sometimes maybe the previous time that they talked to you and the book that they read and how much they liked it. So it's moments like that that really do help to convince you or to remind you, I should say, of why you do this. At the end of the day, because it's a grind. Comics is one of those things where it's such a grind, and not a whole lot of people realize how much work goes into it.
Yeah.
How about you, Terry?
My first convention as a creator, which it was an intentional choice because I was like scared, I guess. It was the word. I was scared to be behind the booth, and I'm still scared to be behind the booth by myself. I don't feel like I'm a great salesman. But the first con that I was behind the booth was at a place called YumaCon in Yuma, Arizona. Um, and it was a tiny little con, but I had fun, and it really did help me kind of build up my confidence for the next one, like at Palm Springs, or I think it might have been, and to the point where I felt a little bit more comfortable doing like the San Diego and like Chicago and whatever else. Uh, but yeah, no, there's still part of me that like if I can get out of not being behind that I don't want to be behind the booth basically. I'd rather be out talking to other creators and telling them how good their stuff is than ever being behind the booth and trying to convince someone to buy a book. um, I'm that guy who's just puts the books out and it's like, hey, well, if you want to read it, it's right there. But so yeah, I don't know. I do like doing the panels and stuff like that. I can talk forever on a panel, but if you're asking me to sell my book, I feel awkward, I guess.
It's
uh,
funny. I feel like I'm almost the opposite, Terry. I I don't know, for whatever reason I really enjoy selling my book behind the booth, but sometimes when I get on a panel or like I have a lot of people around me, I'm just like, oh boy, I'm gonna clam up now, and I don't want to, but I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, see, yin
but
and yang, that's us.
yeah, there you go.
I guess we'll take a break and do a thunder round, which is our round of random questions.
Boy.
My first question is, what's one of your favorite words,
Oh.
Terry?
Uh, well, it's funny because I'm a manager or a director at the hospitals, and my nurses came to me the other day and they started shooting back these things that I say all the time. So it's funny you mentioned that because they said that every day I say the word expectation. So I guess expectation has probably got to be one of my favorite words because they're like, this is an expectation, Terry. You got to do this, Terry. And I was like, why are you saying that? They say, because you say it every day to us. So it's like, okay, well, that must be my favorite word then, expectation.
That's great. I love that because that's like, I think expectation and communication are like the two words that everyone should remind themselves of in every single moment of every single
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
Like, swear to God. Anyway, for me, I don't. So I am a connoisseur of words. I absolutely love flowery language. Whenever I hear a word that I have not heard in either ever or a long time, I always stop the conversation, whoever I'm talking to, and I just thank them for using that word because I don't know. It's just something from my childhood. I think my mom, she went to school for English and literature, so vocabulary has always been a huge thing for me. So I don't know. The first thing that popped in my head though was plethora. I just love the sound of that word. It's a great word. People should use it more.
Yeah, right.
Plethora.
What is that? Three Amigos? Would you say I have a plethora of pinatas?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, that's great.
Um, if I gave you $1 million, what would you do with it?
Oh wow. Well, diapers, number one. But uh
God.
probably I'd pay off my kids' school so they don't have to worry about student loan, and then with $100 left over, I'd go to Chili's or something.
Damn, that is.
Depressing, I know, but
Well, that's like the greatest thing that a dad could do for his children,
yeah,
but also at the same time, like, man, that's a lot.
yeah.
Man, for me, I I would say so. My fiance and I are we're really working on trying to not only build a house for ourselves, but we're also really interested in building a what we're calling kind of like a temple slash museum art museum. So it's sort of like a place for spiritual practice, but also a place for art and a celebration of all things artistic. So I would definitely use it to build that because one of the things we want to do with it is use it as a way for young artists to get their work showcased and to almost use it as a not so much a traditional school, but like an education center where you would have access to working professionals essentially.
Nice. Um, if you had the ability to time travel, who is someone that you would want to have a meal with, and where would you take this person to eat?
Ooh, man. Uh, Time travel, huh? Okay. Growing up in Texas, Texas history was something like big, and so I mean, if you don't grow up in Texas, it's really hard to explain that feeling. But there is that Texas pride, it doesn't go away. I've lived in California for 20 plus, almost 25 years, and it's still, you know, even though I may not be happy with a lot of things that happen in Texas, I'm proud to be from Texas, that kind of thing. So I guess if I could go back in time, I would probably have dinner with the guys from the Alamo, Davy Crockett and Jim Bowie and whatnot, and uh, just have an old home ground barbecue with them, and maybe try to warn them of what's about to happen. Maybe I don't know.
That's good.
That'd
Like,
be an interesting conversation for sure.
Yeah.
yeah, awesome. Man, I'm glad Terry's going first. It gives me some time to think about it. For me, I would have to go with Nikola Tesla. Um, he was the inspiration behind my last book, Feast or Famine, and so I definitely had to take him out, and I would want to go to like an original like speakeasy. There is like a couple of these kind of speakeasy style bars in Ann Arbor, close to where I live. And first time I went to them, I just had that very like visceral feeling of being like thrown back into the 1920s. So I thought that would be a really cool place to take such a historically interesting character.
Oh, nice. Speakeasies are fun.
Yeah.
Um, what's your? I guess while we're talking about that, what's your favorite cocktail?
Oh man, I have to go with. I'm an old man, so I got to go with old fashioned.
Nice, Terry.
Well, I'm a fancy guy, so I guess I like rum and coke.
Ooh,
Yeah, look at me.
that's great.
um, what's one thing you hated as a child but love now as an adult?
I with a passion hated green beans. I know this may not be what you're looking for, but it's the first thing that popped in my head was I could not stand green beans. I would sit at the table for hours because my parents would say, "Well, you're not getting up until you eat all your food." So, which maybe explains a lot about why I look the way I do now. But but green beans was just I hated them with a passion. Now I can't get enough. I mean, green bean casserole, whatever it is, I'll eat it. Uh,
Green bean.
yeah. So that's my growth story right there.
I haven't eaten lunch yet. You're getting me all verklempt over here. That's another good word, verklempt. Anyway, uh, for me, shoot, um, I'm gonna have to piggyback on the food one and go with Brussels sprouts. I don't think anyone really likes Brussels sprouts, but I must say, as a now connoisseur of the kitchen, um, I've enjoyed creating my own little roasted vegetable medleys, and roasted Brussels sprouts are amazingly delicious. I'm
Yeah,
so upset with my mother for not having introduced me to roasted Brussels sprouts before boiled Brussels sprouts. Like, oof,
nice.
gross.
Have you tried it with like a little balsamic vinegar?
I haven't done the balsamic vinegar, but I will say it does sound like a good combo.
Yeah, actually, and there's also another combo, sort of like a. I think they may have used balsamic vinegar as well, but and also some sort of a either a pomegranate or cherry reduction to go along
Mm,
with it. So
it's great.
yeah, it was pretty good. Um, Here's a question specifically for Terry. What are some of the names you are considering for child number 8?
Oh, well, we considered a lot, but we actually have one. And a little backstory, because I guess every answer has to have a backstory with me, I guess. But all my kids have like a unique middle name. They have like a standard first name, like Christian, Joshua, Elijah, Noah. But their middle names are all a little bit hippie-ish. So I've got like a blue, the color blue. I've got a rain and an Orion, a stone. So this number 8, and we were even thinking maybe Ocho, but we're not going that way. Uh, his name is Jonah. First name is Jonah. Middle name is Bear, like growl, like bear. And the story behind that is I call all my kids Bear. They're like Buddy Bear, come here Bear, or something like that. So I was like, well, I, this one's going to be Bear. So Jonah Bear, that's his name.
It's great.
Nice. And for Dave, if you had a rock band, what would be the name of your band?
Oh man, that man, you haven't tripped me up yet, and I think that was the one you tripped me up with. I will say that my band that I was in high school, it was called Fanboy, so it relates to comic books. It does relate to comic books, but it was from the movie Mallrats. I don't know if you
Uh-huh.
guys have seen that.
It's
Mhm.
been a while since I've saw it.
Yeah, so there's a line in there where they're outside the comic book store and they're getting rowdy, and somebody says, "F you, fanboy," and we're like, "Oh no, that's it. We're gonna call ourselves fanboy." So um, I don't know. I feel like I come up with great band names every single day, and it just makes me so sad that I'm not in a band and I can't use it. I feel like Chris Pratt on the Parks and Rec, where they changed their band name like every other episode. But no, God, other than my story about fanboy, I can't come up with anything off the top of my head.
So you would say you come up with a plethora of awesome band names every
Yeah,
day.
just every single time you hear us, it would just be a new name for sure. Although I will say, we had there was a band that came up behind us, and they were called. It was damn it, now I can't remember it. It was on the tip of my tongue. It was like one of those things where like you asked the band name and it was something like not to be determined or something like that. I know
Uh-huh.
that's not what it
Right.
was, but it was something along those lines. I
Like
thought it was quite funny.
incognito? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
If you could teach a course, what would it be on?
For me, I would love to teach a creative writing class. Something like that would be really cool. And I, my creative writing teacher at Texas Tech was God, I can't even Minzig, Mr. Minzig, um, was not the greatest. I don't say that to dog him, but I can see the wealth of he had this habit of like shutting people down and not really liking their story, but like doing it in a public setting. So I really wanted to go back and just be the apologist, the opposite of Mr. Minsick, and be like just letting people fly, letting them carry their story, and then giving them a safe place to like express themselves. And uh, but yeah, no, I would love that. I would love to do something like that.
Dave?
Um. hmm. Wait, what was the question again? I'm sorry.
If you could teach a course, what would it be
Teach a
on?
course. Yeah, I'm sorry. Something popped in my head when Terry was talking, and it like threw me off. Um, I think for me, it would definitely be philosophy. Yeah, I'm a huge philosophizer, and I would be most fascinated by pontificating all kinds of weird thoughts and ideas and theories with a bunch of students. That'd be so much fun.
Which philosophers have made the biggest influence on your life?
Man, I would say Ram Dass is probably one of the biggest. He his docu series Becoming Nobody was just really eye opening to the concept of identity and what we classify ourselves as far as beings or people. Um, and I wouldn't necessarily say he's a philosopher, but Graham Hancock, he's an author and storyteller, but he is very much into ancient civilizations and the origins of consciousness. So he typically talks a lot about this type of philosophical questions. So yeah, those two guys for sure are at the top of my list. But I actually get a lot of my philosophizing from just my own meditations and conversations that I have with my fiance. Lots of just weird stuff that comes up every day. You're like, wait, really? That's a weird way of thinking, you know? But it keeps you, I think, open to change and accepting to new thoughts and ideas. And ultimately, it creates a more knowable version of yourself, because I think a lot of us oftentimes we don't really want to do the dirty work. So we typically kind of recede into these little roles that society's created for us. They're more comfortable to relate to the world through rather than trying to really try to understand who you are.
Hmm.
So
Nice. Can you describe your perfect burger?
these
Perfect
questions.
burger. Um, for me, let's see, toasted buns, right? Um,
Oof.
I would like to have just a touch of mayo, enough mayo that you can taste the tang on it. I'm I'm one of those weird people who likes rare meat, but I would go medium rare on the burger, just enough so you can still it's juicy. Swiss cheese, gotta have Swiss cheese. I like pepperoncinis, uh, and just for the kick, some jalapenos. Not much of a lettuce guy, but gotta have tomato and a pickle on the side. That's my burger.
Nice.
Man, you
Interesting.
you read that off like you order that every single day at a restaurant or something, Terry.
I think I'm just hungry.
Yeah, I'm hungry too. You got me extra hungry now. Um, for me, I would just start with the old basic traditional, lettuce, tomato, onion. But I'm gonna put my cheese on the inside of the burger. I love a stuffed burger. I always love making those monster burgers with the stuffed cheese and little bits of bell pepper and stuff in the meat. I got to go with Terry too. I do enjoy a little bit of redness in my beef. I know some people don't they might like a little rare in their steak, but not a little rare in their burger. But I still like a little rare in the burger still. Um, but yeah, I gotta go with the onion bun. I love an onion bun.
Hmm.
There's something about onion for me. I just really enjoy that flavor. Um, and then for whatever reason, I know it's probably weird, but I enjoy barbecue sauce, even though it might be like an old traditional burger. And then we'll throw some bacon on there because everyone loves bacon.
I know we're all getting hungry, so I promise there won't be any more food related questions.
We're
In an
somehow going to
alternate
figure out how to make it food related.
in an alternate universe, what do you think your other version of yourself would be doing right now?
Oh wow. It's weird that you bring up some of these things. It's almost like you're my Apple TV and you've been listening to me. But But I had this conversation with my wife, and yeah, because I was thinking back to how we were watching Mystic River, and there's that line in there where Sean Penn is like, you ever go back to one choice that can change your entire life, and so we were kind of talking about that kind of stuff, and I really do think that there is one part of me uh, who caught the cancer early when I was 15, had that taken care of, it didn't spread. And I just went on to being, a football coach and a teacher and staying in my small hometown and being content, still having a million kids, because I don't see that changing in any timeline, but still being that small town person. Because that was a trajectory I was on until I got sick and went to Houston and saw that there was a bigger city, and I feel like that was kind of that turning point in your timeline. So yeah, that would be me.
Man, my answer is very different. I feel like my alternate version of myself would be like fighting some horde of demon aliens or something. I swear to God, like I don't know why I want to say that, but I've always felt like there's a part of me that has always been like that fighter warrior kind of like personality. But like if you've ever met me, that's like not at all who I am. But for whatever reason, like whenever I watch that type of programming, it's just that one of those things, and I'm sure you guys probably know what I'm talking about, where you're watching like, I don't know, some kind of crazy battle scene, and you're just like, man, that's me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I could just see that happening. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I feel like for me, it would definitely be some kind of like warrior on some distant planet fighting some horde of villains. I don't know, something like that.
When it comes to TV shows, books, movies, and games, or anything else that you do as a hobby, what's been your comfort food during this pandemic?
uh, you mentioned food, and I had to laugh.
Oh
Um,
shit, I did. My bad.
my
I meant it as a metaphor.
yeah,
In
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah,
case.
yeah. No, but my
Yeah,
mind automatically went to like McFlurries and stuff. So,
yeah.
um, which I'm kidding. I haven't had a McFlurry in years. Or at least don't tell my wife if I have. But my comfort blankie, my comfort food would be, gosh, I mean, it's got to be just finding new shows to watch on Apple TV or whatever it's called, or Prime or whatever. Just finding some obscure thing uh, to enjoy. That, and then rewatching old '80s action movies, because I've been digging into some Commando and Cobra and all these other kind of things that are just so cheesy. But yeah, that's my comfort right there.
Haven't you been playing Dungeons and Dragons also?
I have, but I have. Yeah, that has. I have. I'm full of comfort, Aaron. I don't. but yeah, no. I also DM, and I'm. But a lot of that, I almost is like it's that creative side still to me, I guess. And
I see.
so when I'm doing it, I'm still feel like I'm doing something creative, because I'm writing the story and I'm putting it out there, and we're recording it, and then we're doing comic books
Understood.
for it and stuff. But just time for me to be veggie is
Right, right.
right in front of the TV, I guess.
Dave?
Yeah, for me, my fiance and I have been doing this thing during COVID where we trade '90s movies that the other hasn't seen. Um, so because I think this happened before COVID began, but it was this thing where we recently, I shouldn't say recently because it's been about 2 years now, but before COVID, we had only been living together for about a year, and we had started to notice that each other had not seen a lot of the movies that were really pivotal to the other person. So like I had said stuff like, you've never seen Batman '89? Are you freaking kidding me? So we sat down and watched that. Or, you haven't seen, The Shadow or The Phantom or something like that. Movies to me that are just like pivotal for my childhood, and stuff like for her, like I'd never seen The Princess Bride before. So it was like one of hers where it's like, let's watch that. So trading these like 90 nostalgia kind of movies has been very enlightening for both of us, I think.
Wow, you said Princess Bride, and then I automatically thought of Andre the Giant,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then I remember you talking about skateboard art, and then I remember Shepard Fairey's stuff with Andre the
Mm.
Giant. So I just had that flash in my head really quick.
Yeah, sure.
um,
Series of Iron Giant.
Yep.
right. Since you were both Marvel comic readers growing up, if you could work on any Marvel comic property, which one would you want to work on?
I mean, I have a deep-seated love for the "what if" line, and I feel like there can never be enough "what if." I mean, just the Watcher putting out different
Right.
timelines is classic to me, and that's what drew me into the world was that. And then Spider-Man is my go-to for he's my all-time favorite. So if I ever got to do anything with Spider-Man, even peripherally, I would be in heaven.
Even Ben Riley Spider Man.
Anything. Even superior Spider-Man. I'm all over it.
Um, for me, it's difficult to say because there are so many great characters. Personally, I feel like I would love to work on the Fantastic Four, both writing and drawing, because I feel like there's a lot of fun visuals that you can play around with within that world, as well as I feel like there's a lot of stuff that you can explore within the Fantastic Four that quite hasn't really been explored as much. Um, I personally feel like they need to make a comeback. Actually really recently rewatched just for fun that Silver Surfer movie. And again, like not a terrible movie. I mean, it's got its bad cringy parts, obviously. But it's like one of those things where I thought to myself, man, like I really wanted to see more of that, like more of because I didn't really care for much of how they portrayed Doctor Doom. I felt like he was kind of like this pushover most of the time.
Hmm.
Um, but I feel like I don't know. Personally, I would love to do more of those like cosmic, spacey, interdimensional kind of things. I really gravitate towards that.
They got to find a way to work in Herbie somehow.
Yeah, that would just save the franchise 100%.
Uh, if you made first contact with an alien from another galaxy, what would you give this alien as an example of what Earth has to offer?
Man. I feel like this is a litmus test to see our personality. And what would I give the alien to represent Earth? Wow, I'd give them a Wi-Fi password and a laptop and be like, "Have at it, buddy." I don't. Good
Oh
luck.
boy.
See if you can make sense of what's going on because I really can't.
Yeah, man, that's a tough one. I would probably I think I would probably just take a bunch of different artifacts from like an antique store and try to explain a different like purpose for materials that I know exactly what it's made for, but then try to explain it to them as a different thing, kind of like a Little Mermaid type situation. I think that would be just entertaining for me. But
Would you give them different names? Would you, knowing it's a
yes,
fork, you just call it a dinglehopper or something?
yeah, absolutely.
Of
Yeah, this is
course.
a flip flopper. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, let's pretend that the world is totally safe to travel right now. If you could teleport to anywhere in the world right now, where would you go, and why did you pick this place?
um, I would go to somewhere cold. So I would probably Alaska, somewhere in the wilds of Alaska, just so I could see it. I could see what it's like. Never been up in that area, and I love the cold. I love the dark. I love the cold. I love all that. Uh, yeah. So opposite of San Diego, that's what I love, the weather. But but yeah, no. I mean, I've always been saying forever that hey, we're gonna do a cruise up to Alaska one day. We're gonna go do this in Alaska one day, and it's just never been there. And I'm gonna blame my children. But but one day I'll teleport there and it'll be amazing, and I'll call you.
Nice.
Um, I would go the opposite. I would probably go to the jungle in the Amazon. I've always been very intrigued by the um, ecosystem that's down in the Amazon rainforest. I would really be fascinated to just explore that and see all of that Mother Nature can create.
Yeah, Amazon's pretty interesting.
For sure.
Um, yeah. If um, if the vaccine gave out weird, random superpowers as a side effect, what kind of superpowers do you think you might get?
I've always wanted to be. Whenever anybody asks what would you want your superpower to be, I've always said that I wanted to be invisible, and I don't know what that says about me, but yeah, just being able to go places unnoticed speaks to me. Not that I'm super like noticed or anything, but like maybe I'm just sneaky. I don't know, because I do like to play the rogue in Dungeons and Dragons, so maybe I just like to be in the shadows and kind of watch and listen and stuff like that. Um, yeah, I'm an eavesdropper, basically, is what I'm saying. I guess a peeping tom, but invisible. I'm gonna stick with invisible.
That's a great answer. I think, man, I go back and forth between like super strength and flight because I feel like I would be able to make a bigger impact in the world if I had super strength versus flight. However, flight would personally, for me, be more fun. So I think I'm going to go with flight for sure.
Nice. Um, what is your go-to karaoke song?
Purple Rain. I won second place in 1995 at I
Wow.
did.
That's
I did. I already had it locked and loaded. That's the one I go to.
wow.
So since I know it's an award-winning song for me, at least, because I had a $50 gift certificate for a steak for that song, was Purple Rain. And so anytime there's karaoke, and I'm there, that Purple Rain's coming up at some point.
That's great. I hope we do get to do karaoke.
Karaoke
Hopefully,
con.
hopefully, if we can get both of you down in San Diego for Comic Con one
Yeah,
year, maybe we
yeah.
can all go out and do karaoke.
Hell
There
yeah.
you go. Sounds good. Um, I haven't done a lot of karaoke. Although the last time I did karaoke, um, I did uh, I did Crazy Love by Van Morrison.
Mm.
That's a good one. That gets the attention of the ladies in the room for sure. But yeah, I remember that one. I Not to be outshined by Terry, I didn't win an award or anything. However, I will say that after I performed that song, towards the end of the night, the karaoke person came up to me and said, "We got a little bit of extra time and no one signed up. Do you want to come and sing another one because you did so well?" So
Wow. You got
Wow.
an
I will say
encore.
that I did get an encore. I didn't win any awards for that encore, but the
What
encore was
was the
Sunday
song?
morning.
What song did you sing for your encore?
It was Sunday Morning by Maroon Five. So
Oh
That's
wow.
not a that's not an easy song.
that's why I was like, it's the end of the night. I'm gonna just go for it, see what happens. Everyone dug it though. It was pretty good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The next segment of the podcast is superhero shoutouts. Is there a person or group of people that has helped you along the way that you'd like to say thanks to? And also, is there an artist, writer, or other creative that you'd like our audience to check out?
Yeah. For me, especially recently and during the pandemic and everything, having a connection to the Accidental Aliens here in San Diego. It's an art group in San Diego, the Accidental Aliens. Has been cool. It's been cool to kind of still be in the group chats with them and see their creativity and see, because all of them are awesome in their own right. Just to see everything they're doing and just to kind of have that little bit of community still, while everything else is on hold, has been awesome for me. And yeah, maybe that might surprise them because I don't interact too much in the chats, but I do read all their chats. So Accidental Aliens, awesome. And then you mentioned Rylan Grant earlier, so shout out to Rylan Grant. I'm reading was it Peacekeepers now, and it's amazing. It's just like most of Ryland Grant's stuff. It's up there, man. It's up there.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the ones that are leading the way in terms of indie comics
Yeah.
for sure.
For me, I would say, I've been fortunate enough to be part of a weekly draw stream with some of the guys from Alterna on Robert Geronimo's channel, his YouTube channel. We do it every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So what is that, like 5 p.m. you guys' time? Um, so that's just been a really great opportunity to be amongst other creatives, to be able to draw something live for fans and watch them kind of draw along with you. So that's kind of one of those things that has kind of cropped up, not because of COVID, but I think it just sort of aligned well with that time for us to get it off the ground. So it's been a great opportunity to be able to have like a weekly show where we get together, we hang out, we draw, we promote, and then we get a chance to talk with fans too. So I really enjoyed that. I've also want to give a shout out to the a couple shows that I've been on that have been really great to me. So come get some with Black Star. She does I don't know if she does a weekly show or not, but she was one of the first shows that I went on for my book Confederate Monster, and was very supportive and always been supportive of me. Red Valkyrie, Shay, she's always been very supportive of my work, and she was also a participant in my fan contest I did for Confederate Monster, which was really great. And then Critical Blast, RJ, he's also been a really huge supporter of me and my work, so shout out to those guys as well.
Nice. Um, is Are there any other projects that you like to promote? So, what other projects have you been involved with that you'd like our audience to know about, or is there anything? And also, is there any other information about Buddy that you'd like to promote?
Dave, you want to go first?
Sure. So I mentioned my other book, Confederate Monster, is a project I've got going on. Indiegogo at the moment, it's an Indaman, but I'm probably going to keep it open for at least the end of the month, maybe a little bit more. We'll see. I'm trying to keep it open as long as Buddy's open. So that story is basically Frankenstein meets the Civil War. So we take the classic Frankenstein characters and we put them into the Civil War era, but we follow the Igor character, or Igor, however you want to pronounce it, um, where he's kind of established a new identity for himself living in Virginia. And the Confederates find out about his past and how he's connected to Victor Frankenstein, and they reanimated this monster. So they convince him to reanimate their dead army. I just finished the third issue, so we're about halfway through the book right now, and I'm working on a prequel story at the moment. But the Indiegogo is, like I said, still going on. You can still, back if you want to get the 3 issues, as well as a ton of other swag. I've got T-shirts, hats, coasters, stickers, prints. I've got aged prints that I'm doing myself, hand aged with coffee and my oven and all kinds of stuff. And then I've also got 3D printed busts of Victor Frankenstein available in 2 different sizes, a 4-song vinyl soundtrack. And then right now, our last stretch goal we're trying to reach, we're only like $100 and some dollars away from it. Our $8,000 stretch goal will unlock an oversized spaghetti Western style movie poster for the book. So I'm hopeful that we can hit that before we close it out. I've seen a little bit of a bump in the campaign because of the Buddy campaign. So I'm really hoping I can get that 8,000 before we close it out.
Nice.
I don't have. I have some other stuff locked and loaded, but I'm not going to talk about those. I will talk about Buddy though. Um, Buddy, and you're going to see the difference in the job that Dave does selling and the job that I do. So, Dave, if I'm lacking, you feel free to pick up the slack. But right now, we're at 260 backers. We're a little over 7,300 funded, which is awesome, and we appreciate all of that. Dave and I have been brainstorming on some cool stuff that's coming up. We already talked about some of the add-ons, but just to kind of reiterate, uh, Dave has slaved himself away to say that he'll do some commissions for people. We got enamel pins, we got die cut stickers, we got prints, original art from Kelly Williams and from the Buddy Number One book. They're all part of the add-on, and there's certain tiers that where everything you can get. So there's one tier called Everything Under the Sun, and you literally get everything under the sun. So every add-on, every stretch goal is all added in on that one. And then the variant covers from Emily Pearson and Kelly Williams, Stan Yak, George Vega. We just picked up his. It's a Exorcist homage cover. So we got a lot of good stuff on there. And the story. The stories, I love the story, but I'm a little biased. But it's 30 pages of Buddy fighting evil and protecting his humans. And we are adding 6 more pages in of origin stories. So that's 36 pages of lovely Pug straight to your house.
I don't know, Terry. You're getting
Awesome.
pretty good at that.
Am I?
Sounds like it.
Okay.
Sounds good on my end.
All right. All right.
What are some of the best places for our audience to connect and follow you online?
All my social media is the same. So Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and then even I'm on something new called Slasher. It's a horror social media site. Everything is all MAYOTL, Mayo TL. You can find me there, and I'm sure I'm sharing Buddy on there. And then obviously go to Kickstarter, look up Buddy, and he'll pop up ready with his little puppy dog eyes.
Nice.
Awesome. So for me, you can find me at Dave Swartz Art, and that's SWARTZ, no CH. You can find me on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and on YouTube. I have a weekly live show that I do on Saturdays at noon Eastern Standard Time. It's called Dose of Dave. Basically, just talk about whatever comes to my mind on that day. But it's typically centered around philosophical ideas, or anything that has to do with us as a collective species. So I also have a podcast that I do with my fiance called Higher Consciousness. Um, that is also another kind of out there, mind blowing kind of discussion show. We do a YouTube show as well as a podcast, so you can check us out on YouTube as well. And I also have a Patreon if anyone is interested in checking out my behind the scenes process work for my book, or any of my paintings that I'm doing. I show my newest and latest stuff on there. So if you're interested in sort of more the behind the scenes Dave Swartz Art stuff, you can check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Dave Swartz Art.
Awesome. Before we close out the show, I always like to ask creators about advice. What are some helpful pieces of advice for someone just starting their comic book creating career?
One of the best, and I'm going to plagiarize someone here because I heard this at a convention once during a panel, and I just kind of am running with it because it made perfect sense to me. Is that everything that you're spending money on, as far as like the conventions and the art and everything that you are focused on, not wanting to go overboard on? The philosophy that he had is that this is your college, this is the learning years to get where you want to go. So if you have the goal of one day being published by Image or being published by Marvel or whatever, everything leading up to that is your college career. Everything up to that is your education. So you don't become a doctor just because you want to become a doctor. You put money into it and you invest into it. So all of this stuff that you're building up to, all the money that you're spending, that's your education fund. So that's what I would say: is don't get discouraged by the price tag sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, Terry. For me, I would say, aside from just the financing of it all, because that is a major concern, I would definitely say just don't give up when you don't get the views that you were looking for, or the interaction that you were looking for, the comments that you were looking for, or even if someone comes at you and gives you a critique that you don't like. Um, just because you may not get what you're expecting doesn't mean you're not getting what you need. So for me, what I try to do, and again, this isn't something that I've mastered either. I've been doing this for 7, 8 years now, and I still have moments of doubt where you have a bad day, you drew a bad page, or you weren't able to write as much as you wanted to, or for whatever reason I just stated, it gets you down and it makes you question why you're doing this in the first place. And I think ultimately what you have to remind yourself of is, can you live your life without what you do, even if it means you may not have as much money as you thought you'd have, or you may not have as big a following or a big a fan base as you thought you might have. If you still can't live without doing that, you got to do it. For me, I would just really encourage everyone out there that nothing in life should get you down from a passion that you have, even if that passion is not widely shared by a lot of people. So follow your passions and don't get discouraged by others, because comparison is the largest thief of joy.
Those were both profound pieces of advice, and I thank the both of you for sharing that, and also for being on the podcast today. I look forward to hopefully seeing Terry again in person. We're both here in San Diego, and I hope to meet you in person, Dave. You seem like a really cool person, and I can't wait to either have a burger, drink a cocktail with you, or sing some songs at karaoke. That'd be fun.
Absolutely, yeah. Same here.
Yeah.
I guess we'll go ahead and close out the show. Thank you for listening to the Holly Show podcast, and thanks to our guests, Terry Mayo and David Swartz. Please give them a follow and check out their comic book, Buddy, now on Kickstarter until Saturday, June 5th, 2021. Also check out Dave's Confederate Soldier on Indiegogo. I'm sorry, Confederate Monster. We love putting the spotlight on independent pop culture creatives. If you have a suggestion for a potential guest, please let us know. You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, YouTube, Amazon Music, Pandora, Spotify, and our website, hallh.com. If you believe in our mission to be the voice of independent creators, we would appreciate a rating, hopefully 5 stars, and a comment on Apple Podcasts. Please spread the word on social media using the hashtag HallHShow. Peace, cheers, and stay safe out there.